Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, and welcome to our COVID conversations here on Facebook Live in the 2 o'clock hour. I have a very special guest today, my good friend Ed Day, who's the county executive of Rockland County, just on the other side of that river. And Ed is an experienced county executive. He takes a rookie like me under his wing to teach me a few things. I've been very grateful for his friendship as we've worked on a variety of things together. Ed, it's nice to see you, even if it's in Zoom.
Well, the great part is we didn't have to pay a toll.
That's true. I have to pay a toll to go back home, but I get to go to Rockland for free. I appreciate that.
It's great seeing you again, George. Hope all is well. And again, I certainly want to echo for everybody, especially my friends out in Westchester County, just how fortunate I've been to have you with me. We met very early on after you were elected. We maintain communication on a regular basis. We have a lot of things in common. And the one thing that never mattered at all, ever, between the two of us is the fact that we had different political parties. We always went and did what we had to do for the people, and genuinely appreciate all that you have done.
And that's a mutual feeling. And, you know, we have so many people in Westchester County work in Rockland, people who live in Rockland work in Westchester County. So our futures are linked together. And, you know, we also recognize you bought a New Jersey, I bought a Connecticut. So we're not just operating in a New York State vacuum. We have other states that impact us. If something happens in Montvale or in Greenwich, that affects what happens in Suffolk and in Portchester. So we have that much in common. And at least we can commiserate together. That's always a nice feeling from time to time. But you have had experience, Ed, with this. You had a measles outbreak, I guess it was 2 years ago. I forget now.
What last year? We finished, well, we started 2 years ago and we completed it last year, yeah.
But, you know, you dealt with this issue of contact tracing. You dealt with sort of the climate that happens when something starts to spread. What did you learn from that experience that you're using now as you manage Rockland through this pandemic?
Well, one of the things that I saw and was put together by a health department was basically a war room. Not much unlike what I experienced with two police departments at the command and executive level. You know, they doing investigations of cases. What we now know as contact tracing was something we did back then. We were able to stay with that a lot more at the time because our resources were able to handle it when we were helped, in fact, by members of your health department in Westchester. The state sent people down, but this crisis was just overwhelming. So we stayed with that as long as we could, but now we're picking it up again. It is a tremendous tool. At the end of the day, you're looking to interrupt the virus, and this is an effective, proven way of doing it. What also I learned was watching what was done, as I said earlier, was the work that was done. It resembled a command and control center that I was used to. So, you know, all those experiences have and continue to come in handy right now as we face down this virus, which obviously is rivals the pandemic of 1918. It's a once in a century type of virus. So yeah, it's been very helpful. And again, as we have discussed this ourselves between the two of us, because last year was like, you know, you were saying you were glad you didn't have to go through the measles, and now this year you bore a brunt of the coronavirus. So I guess
right.
It was a little, you know, just the way it works out. But you know, we rely on each other's experience. That's a great thing, and we have great people. We have great people, as you well know, you know, working for county government, and they just have done a tremendous job for us and for the people.
And this is really where I think, you know, the experience that we get watching, you know, your administration of Rockland. You went through a very tough fiscal crisis when you walked in the door. We had to stabilize our finances walking in the door. And we both similarly have very, you know, well-educated, very particular constituents. You know, they hold us accountable every day. It's an interesting process. And obviously we read the same newspaper. We watch the same News 12. I see stories about Rockland all the time. I'm sure you see them about Westchester. So together we're entering phase one, as the way the governor's constructed this. And I don't know how many of the folks have heard this, probably too much to care about, but it's construction, it's manufacturing, it's curbside retail, it's wholesale distribution, it's agriculture, forestry. You have a lot of forestry in Westchester. But so tell me, what's the impact in Rockland in phase one as you get this thing rolling?
Well, you know, I think, you know, at the very beginning of it all, the fact that we have all these businesses now that can open up and move forward, I think it sends a great message. The fact of the matter is that you know, we've been down for weeks upon weeks now, and you know, for the people of our respective counties to be able to see the opening up, as it were, I think that's critically important to them, just from their own psyche at this point. The other piece of that, and is something I know we both have said in the control room meetings, is that it's critically important that people understand we're just not flipping a switch, that we're doing things in a controlled manner. We have developed a model here, safety first and people always. As we process through things, we are sharing with our constituents that there is going to be a requirement of business to make sure that they file plans that comport with best health practices, best practices of the industry, expectations of government, guidelines that are being put forth, that be affirmed formally, and those plans be maintained on site for inspection as necessary. This is one thing that struck me in talking to many of my neighbors here, is that a lot of people are going to have to be talked into getting back onto the horse, as it were. There seems to be a skittishness among a number of people that, I mean, from my perspective, when restaurants open up, I cannot wait to go in and have lunch one day. It's just, I miss it. I really do miss that occasional lunchtime.
I'll cross the bridge and buy.
I'm sorry?
He said, I'll cross over the bridge and I'll buy.
Okay, we'll argue about that later, but at the end of the day, that's me. And of course, as you know, George, you've been in business a long time. You don't govern by the way you feel. You govern by the way the people are expressing things to you. So there's going to be an extra hurdle, I believe, not just on government's part, but on the business's part, to calm people and attract them in. Not just say we're open for business and we've hit these marks. There has to be a little extra done, I believe, to make sure that people come back into the economy, come back to some beginning of normalcy, not just so much a sense of normalcy to begin with.
Now, you've had that challenge, as have I and all of our colleagues, to deal with our control of the parks. It's one of the things that the governor did not supersede us in. And so we've each been able to make decisions about what we're going to do with our parks, keep them open. We recognize people need recreation. They need to be able to stretch their elbows if they're going to be in the house all the time. Yet at the same time, we also have to manage the process of social distancing and all this stuff. So what were your decisions in terms of your county parks? How did you approach it? What did you keep open? Did you close anything? What was the process you went through?
We went through, the most important issue in my mind was consistency. You can't have a park open and all the other parks closed, because you're just going to overwhelm that one park. So from my perspective, it was important that we had a consistent effort where either there would be no green space or equal amounts of green space. So people had a choice to where they wanted to go to. We have town and village parks in addition to county parks here. They have different sets of rules where it's residents only, for example. So what we did is first we spoke to the state, because the biggest problematic park we have in Rockland as it relates to the amount of people is Rockland Lake State Park. And that park has a pool. It is routinely visited by weekend travelers from New York City. So you can imagine a reaction when we heard that the mayor was not going to be opening up the pools in New York City. Is just telling us we're going to have a challenge and a half, because we've had to actually put together very detailed plans of operation to deal with the large crowds that come over here, and we've been successful. But it could be overwhelming very quickly. So after 2 or 3 weeks, we when the parks were originally closed, because I remember that period of 2 or 3 weeks where they were concerned, which way is this virus going to go? We had all our parks shut down, including the state parks, because we did not want to encourage any spread of that virus during that supposedly critical time. Once that time passed, the state parks opened up. We opened our county parks up. Most of the town parks did open up, and what we found by doing it that way is that really some parks closed anyway, like Bear Mountain State Park, Rockland Lake State Park, Tolman State Park. Some of the state parks closed, at around noon over the weekend. But we did not get reports of mayhem like we had a couple of years back on July 4th weekend at Rockland Lake State Park. So I think right now it's working, and I think though the state's going to have to rethink that distancing issue there. What they're doing is they're putting cones in every other parking space to minimize how many people come in. But of course, what happens? People show up and they end up parking on 9W in our end of the world, which creates a traffic nightmare and a very dangerous situation. So the idea makes sense. It's just a matter of fine tuning at this point, with maybe more law enforcement presence and things of that nature.
We had a very similar situation. In fact, we opened 2 of our beaches. We have 3 county beaches. Glen Island, we lost because we turned over that facility for testing down in New Rochelle. It's the largest of our beaches. It's also closest to the Bronx. But we opened up Playland Beach, and we opened up Croton Point Park Beach. And we also had to limit them to Westchester residents only. No offense to our friends in Rockland, but we knew that once the mayor of the city decided not to open their beaches, we could easily be, swamped. Now, we didn't have it wasn't the greatest beach weekend. So it wasn't, we lost Saturday to rain, and the temperature and the sun was never quite at peak during Sunday, Monday. But obviously, we're just up I-95 from the Bronx. And while normally we don't want to restrict anybody from coming in, we knew that if there was no Orchard Beach, then they'd look for the next nearest beaches and we would be it. And so we had to try to figure that out. We had to do the same with golf. There was a lot of back and forth on golf. We have 6 public golf courses, which we were able, now they're all now open and functioning. And we welcome folks from the outside in. From the standpoint of your law enforcement background, you really have a great platform to be able to understand how to enforce things. And I'm a layman, I don't come out of the law enforcement community, but the state has us enforcing things like social distancing. As a professional law enforcement official, how do you balance enforcing these rules that have come down our way?
George?
Yes, Ed, I can.
Oh, I thought I lost for a second. Never mind. I'm sorry. How do we balance? Well, look, I think most important thing from a perspective of a law enforcement member is you have to be judicious. You have to exercise discretion. There's an approach. You have to put things in balance. In particular, I've had people call and complain about that people aren't social distancing. They're not wearing masks in public. You're not going to, if you come upon that as a law enforcement member, you're not going to come at that person like you committed an armed robbery. Obviously, it's an educational piece, and police officers do this regularly. It's a normal thing to do. They don't up the ante unnecessarily, but again, it is challenging for the police officers. I've heard this many times from the chiefs up here in Rockland, the sheriff. Officers are not comfortable enforcing what really are almost viewed as laws of etiquette. Even though we do know that the issue of spreading the virus is critically important, it's not that overt type of criminal act that we're speaking of. So there is a comfort level that has to be achieved there, and it's difficult for our officers, but they do an admirable job in trying to get people to understand this is not a joke, that you need to be covering your face. From all accounts, it appears to be working, and it will be foolish of us not to do it. And you use tricks of the trade, such as, look, if you don't care about yourself, that's fine, but I'm sure you don't want to bring something home and give it to mom, dad, or your family. So it's a variety of things we use in the field of law enforcement to try to get the mission accomplished, as it were.
I mentioned up front that you border New Jersey. I know you have a good relationship with Jim Tedisco, who's the county executive over the other side of the dotted line. I don't follow New Jersey as much as I follow Connecticut, obviously, since Connecticut is our immediate neighbor. What's happening in New Jersey that is or isn't affecting the way you have to manage Rockland County?
Well, it's interesting. Jim and I spoke about the issue of we had our he had his parks closed in Bergen County. Ours was open here in Rockland, and we were inundated here in Rockland. Thankfully, we have a relationship. I spoke to him. We worked that through. We actually had to encourage both governors to speak to each other so we could both be on the same page. And he was allowed to open his parks up, which had an immediate positive effect on the amount of people at our parks here in Rockland. But as you mentioned a couple of times already, the fact of the matter is, as close as I am to you, there's still a lot of water between us. Right. The distance between me and Jim Tedesco is one step. It's just a matter of a street. And it's important that if things such as businesses start opening up, retail businesses, if we have salons opening up, things of that nature, we're going to lose people from Rockland who are going to go across into Bergen and spend their money there. And let's not kid ourselves. You don't want to start, especially after what we've been going through, we don't want to change the habits of consumers at this particular critical juncture of our history. We want to make sure that people continue, go back to where they came from, make sure they go back to the stores they normally frequent, as opposed to going to Jersey, which at one time, remember, nobody bought gas in Rockland because they all went to Jersey. It was cheaper. Now it's not that situation. But from your perspective, and also Mary Ellen Odell up in Putnam, Connecticut was opening their restaurants to outdoor dining effective May 20th. What's that going to do to people in Westchester County? They're going to, again, the ones that are looking to get out are going to drive over to Connecticut. And this is exactly what you don't want to see happen. This is why I know both were heartened and supportive of the governor's effort to have a regional approach and beyond just regions in the state, but also extend to other states. But we have seen all too often that effort has kind of fallen flat. So I guess all the governor can do is try to re-encourage the leaders of these states and the city of New York to be more in lockstep with the rest of us, because it just makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and you know, when we look at the region that we're in, along with Dutchess, Putnam, Ulster, Orange, and Sullivan counties, we're unique in the state in that we're right close to the city, but and on the other end of the region, we border upstate, and there are elements of upstate realities in parts of the region. And we're next to not just Connecticut and New Jersey, but even in points, Sullivan County to Pennsylvania, and in parts of Dutchess way up north, you're bordering Massachusetts. So what happens in other states all of a sudden matter a lot to us. It's not just what Albany decides. I was in Albany as a state legislator, and sometimes the size and scope of New York State is so big that you don't think about anything besides it. But as you pointed out, if the barbershops open on Greenwich Avenue in Greenwich, you know, that's where you're going to get your hair cut, and the ladies with, you know, going to nail salons and so forth. All of that's a factor. But also, one other question for you. You know, we all have a system of government where there are towns and villages. We have a couple of cities in Westchester, but you have towns and villages. You have some pretty big towns out there. What's the nature of the relationship as you work with the 5 town supervisors and the various village mayors?
The relationship is excellent. We have 5 town supervisors, 19 villages. When we got the news of the phase 1 beginning coming up, we sent messages out, and we had a 1 o'clock conference call yesterday on Memorial Day with all the supervisors. I think we missed 1 mayor out of the bunch, you know, that's the type of cooperation we have. So we're very fortunate here with that. Again, politics takes a back seat as a matter of routine. We work together. We had about a 45 minutes conference call yesterday. We laid out everything that we were preparing for at the county level of government through our economic development and tourism session, and also our public messaging, that we speak to what's going to be happening, providing a sense of comfort for the people of Rockland to reintroduce themselves to the economy and not be fearful of that. All those things were all laid out and ready to go. And so it was a good meeting, good teleconference. We had our 45 minutes or so together, and presumably some of us went back to burgers and beer after that.
Sounds good. Unfortunately, when I meet with ours, we have 20 villages, 19 towns, and 6 cities. So it's a pretty big bill for burgers and beer when we get all those guys.
That's an audience.
Big audience. Just one more question, and I'll let you close with whatever you'd like. Obviously, the presence of New York City is important. You and I are open now. We've got our work to do. We certainly want to get to phase 2, where we can open up some of the office buildings. That's where the people who live in York County work in mine, or the reverse, can actually get to work and start being productive, get off of unemployment, and be productive in society. But we both sit in the shadow of New York City, and there's many people who live in our 2 counties who work in the city. Do you have any sense, after we're going through what we're going through, and you've worked in the city, you've been assigned to different precincts in the cities, you know the city pretty well. What is the city going to have to do to get to where you and I have gotten to?
You know, the city right now, it's very difficult, because I look at the city that I worked in 20 years ago as a member of law enforcement, and the city I see now isn't quite the same. It's a whole different tone and tenor to it. I think part of that is contributing to the difficulty they're going through right now. But again, I blessed as you are that we don't have to overly worry about that at this point, because we are where we are right now. But I will say this: I think folks in New York City are going to find that places such as Westchester and Rockland and Orange and other counties in the Mid-Hudson region are going to be very attractive to them when they find that they don't have to go to the city to work. They can come up to Westchester, come up to Rockland County and other places nearby, and earn a living. It's just a whole different dynamic right now. So it's going to be interesting watching that play out. I'm hopeful that at some point the mayor and the governor will be able to get on the same page as it relates to what they're going to do. The issue with the pools, for example, that's a killer for all of us. That's what that happens. And then to have for lack of a better word of using, chutzpah to tell Laura Curran in Nassau County, could you take my residents from New York City to your beaches? I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. But again, it's going to be interesting and very difficult, I think, for a number of reasons going on in New York City right now.
Just closing out, Ed, you've been gracious with your time. I know you've got a lot of things to do. How do you see Rockland coming out of this? What's the, sort of the projection ahead for the economy in your county as you see it?
Look, we're going to take a major hit. We both know that already. We between the battling going on with the federal government and the state for funding, the fact that the governor was given pretty much carte blanche to take funds out of our county budgets midstream, which would deficit us immediately. We've done, again, as you know, we've done a lot of work to get ourselves out of a mess, just as you have done, and to have it to potentially destroyed with a wave of a pen is not really a good feeling. But I think my belief is this: we have both of us, both of our counties have had tremendous challenges. We were attacked in 2001, just about 30 miles south of where we are right now, act of war against our country. We've seen Superstorm Sandy and hurricanes. We've seen a lot of challenges here in Rockland with the fiscal debt, the fiscal conditions that we had to face, and we've conquered those things. And the one thing I've always found, when there are challenges, people stand up and they meet those challenges. And when they beat those challenges, they're all the stronger for it. Then there's nothing they can't conquer. So I see for both our counties, I see more strength coming out of adversity, because that's, I think, the way we just rock and roll.
We've been talking with Ed Day, who's the county executive of Rockland County, a friend and a mentor. Ed, thanks for taking the time. Good luck over there. And I hope sooner rather than later, I'll be on your side of the bridge, you'll be on my side, and we'll have a home and home lunch and enjoy each other's company again.
And then on top of that, we have a 3 o'clock call with the governor's people.
I can't wait.
Oi.
Again, Ed Day, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another Facebook Live COVID conversation, as we call them. I think my Deputy County Executive colleague, Ken Jenkins, will be hosting that one with our Senior Services person, May Carpenter. And then we'll have a brief update at 2 o'clock, giving you the statistics of where we are and hopefully how we're doing on day 2 of the grand opening. In the meantime, stay safe. And whether you're in Rockland or Westchester or any of our other counties, we're working hard for you. Hopefully we'll get it done. Thank you much. Have a good day. Thank you, Ed.